Okay, so this is about inner silence and beliefs, and I'm going to talk about how I experienced this personally. When I was pretty young, I was married to my first wife, and I remember a really seminal event in my life. And I'm going to do something with seminal events in your lives too, not today. And what it was is I was married to this really wonderful young woman who I could not fault in any way, you know, or there was nothing about her that I didn't like. She was really beautiful. She was a model. And walking down the street with her was an experience of watching people's heads turn, men and women, because she was exotic looking. And I was not interested in her. And I was married. It was quite a dilemma. I wasn't in love with her, and I wasn't really attracted to her. And I remember we had just gotten an apartment. We went downtown. I think I might have mentioned this before. And we bought two things. One was a plant, and one was red Venetian wine. And I lay down in my bed completely miserable because here I was. I didn't know how I'd ever. I felt much too much empathy for her to leave her. I couldn't, you know, when I was young too. And on the other hand, I was very terribly unhappy. I guess I had had some experience with this, but one of the things that happened to me around that period was that my mind, I stopped my mind. I stopped myself from thinking, and I was able to see that in that state, none of this mattered. That was a drama that was created by my mind over and over. And I saw that there was this other state that was legitimate. It was quite a revelation. That I could just look at things from a place of not thinking, in words. Unfortunately, by the way, I didn't have a dog at the time. If you have a dog, watch your dog. They do it all the time. And consequently, they're much happier than we are. And you can really see how dogs just, they're enthusiastic, happy, you know. Actually, I was watching a dog, an old, really old dog, 16 years old, walk as I was walking my dog. And, you know, it was having a hard time doing the things it did 8 years ago, but it wasn't complaining or upset or, you know, it was still doing the same things, pretty happy, right? So later on, then, skipping from wife to wife, I was married again, and I was living in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is right near Harvard. I was across the street from Harvard Divinity School in a place called Museum Street. And I was such a young fanatic that I would know when the spiritual books of any kind were coming out weeks before they came out. And if you live in Cambridge, Cambridge at that time was just full of bookstores. So every day I would get up, I would walk through Harvard Yard, which was right on the way, into Harvard Square, and do the tour of all the bookshops. And if there was any kind of spiritual book or anything like that, psychology too, I would just get it. And I was very disappointed if I couldn't get one for a few days. So this went on for quite a while, and then through an interesting comedy, it was a 3-story house, and we lived in the middle. And the woman on top of us, Sarah, was a divinity student, a minister, finishing up. And Sarah was a really great person. We got along really well, but she had a very active sex life, and was right on top of us, which would lead to all this banging, you know, like something. I think she had a bunk bed or something. And at times, it didn't last that long, you know, but I couldn't handle it. And I was working as a musician, and I'd have to write parts, but I just couldn't work, you know. So I remember one day, Sarah was going at it, and I said, "Oh God, I can't work." And so I went across the street to Harvard Divinity School. There's a nice lawn there, and I sat down and I thought to myself, you read every spiritual book in the world. You're looking for something that you don't know, and you've been doing this forever. If there was such a thing that you could find in words in a book, you would have found it already. You have spent so much time, you've read everything. It couldn't be that. And then I realized that the truth was, in fact, that there was no particular set of thoughts, nothing in the rational mind, nothing, no information, nothing like that, that was going to lead me deeper into what I was looking for. And I became convinced of that at that time. And not that I haven't read since, but not in the same way. One of the things that I was reading in those days, actually, by the way, was the Don Juan books, who was saying exactly the same thing, so it's helpful. So now we're going to flash a little bit forward to part 3.